We're going to talk about Kenan Yildiz, the Juve forward, who I think had a phenomenal development since he arrived in Italy from Bayern Munich's U19 in 2022. One of the biggest stars in Italian football, I would say, right? Of course, he represents Turkey. That means the eyeballs of an entire country are on you. He is a national team player for his country as well. Plays in an attacking role. His numbers are pretty decent: 11 goals and 10 assists in 44 games across all competitions. Then this season, 10 goals and 7 assists in Serie A. I think when you look back, how have you seen his development with Juventus?
When he would have been in the Bundesliga or La Liga, you would have probably said, yeah, you would have expected him to have this kind of meteoric rise. I mean, he's now since March, he's the second most valuable player in Serie A. Not because he got because an upgrade, but because Alessandro Bastoni got a downgrade. But anyway, he's number 2 now. And I think in the league that is more keen on talent development than Serie A is most of the time. Like I said, you would have expected him to have this development because when he played at the youth level at Bayern Munich, he was already like this great diamond that you just had to get out of the youth system and put in your team, and then he would do the things he can do, it's not always the case in Italy that talents at a very young age get the chance to play regularly. But when he had a season in Primavera for Juventus, then he should have played in Serie C in the third league for the second Juventus team. But they had some injury issues, and Massimiliano Allegri, the coach at the time, promoted him to the senior team, and the times he gave him the chance, you could already see, okay, this is someone special, he really has the technical ability and this like X factor that he can make a difference even at this young age. And since then he's it's just like a rocket rising. He's got the number 10 now, the famous Alessandro Del Piero number. He got the big contract extension in February. He's now one of the best earners in the club, and he's got the most scorer points. He's vice captain, and he's definitely the most important player in the Juventus attack.
I know people at Bayern Munich, and he's the player that is often mentioned to me as the one that got away, right? And I think lots has been written about the fact that he not only got away from Bayern Munich, but also Germany's national team. It happens, talent falls through and gets missed. And in his case, I think for Bayern Munich, a really costly mistake, because when you look at his market value development now, 75 million euros. Remember when Bayern Munich were looking for a left winger and then spent lots of money on Luis Diaz, and yet that worked out, but 75 million euros is Kenan Yildiz's market value now. They could have saved themselves all that money.
Absolutely. And it's always the discussion at Bayern, or it was until Musiala and Lennart Kahl broke through into the team, that where are the new players from the youth, from the Bayern Munich youth? And he would have been there, of course.
So he arrives at Juventus, he makes the first team. We quickly gave him a market value of 10 million euros as an 18-year-old. That's quite high. Then he jumps to 30 million euros this is in November 2024. Stays there for a while. Then in October 2024, he goes to 40. In December, he goes to 45. Then in June 2025, he goes to 50 million euros. And then finally in October 2025, so this was the fall update, he hits the 75 million euros, and he got that market value confirmed in December. And then, of course, we had only had a small update in the spring, right? And we're going to have a big update before the World Cup. But that is quite the rise in market value. You don't really see that often, and especially in Serie A, as you mentioned, with Italian players, or with young players that comes through the academy. Of course, in his case, he's not Italian, but it's not something that we've seen a lot in recent years.
Yeah, I will have to think about who you could compare. Maybe it is Alessandro Bastoni, who is a defender, of course. He had a similar rise, and Nico Pass now is on a bit of a lower level, but the graph looks similar. Yeah, he could be someone, but if he'll get to the likes of the 75 million or even higher, we'll have to see next year. This will definitely not be something to discuss this summer. But I think it could have been even faster. He was kind of held back by the development the Juventus team was taking as in the large picture and in the bigger picture, because they had they had to change coaches several times, and there was not a lot of consistency in the development of the tactics. They had, under Max Allegri, he's always this this classic Italian approach coach with a solid defense, and we have some stars up front, and they will manage to score a goal, and that's enough. And Igor Tudor, I mean, he's better than the things he showed at Tottenham, of course, but but he was there only for half a year in the end, and they all didn't really manage to have like a real good functioning attack. And Kenan Yildiz this season, when Luciano Spalletti, who is able to form this team that can play beautiful football and can score a lot of goals, but he took over in the middle of the season, and he is also like kind of adjusting to be a Juventus coach. He took the defense into the focus to get into the Champions League ranks, and Kenan Yildiz, he was kind of alone much of the time, and they gave him the ball, and he should do something good with it. And he was able to do that a lot of times. You mentioned his numbers. There's, I think, only 3 players who scored more goals. There's only 3 players who provided more assists in the league. But he's still young, and he cannot like shoulder all the pressure on his own. And I think if he would have had a brilliantly working team at his side, he might even be higher right now.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you look at this Juventus team, it's not the Juventus of 4 or 5 years ago. It's not, the all-conquering Serie A champions. Then they will slip into Champions League football, it looks like, when you look at the 3 head points ahead of Como. So not even that is secured, right? So still some work to do for them. I mean, the outlook then is with Kenan Yildiz. You already mentioned it. That there is a feeling that he hasn't reached his ceiling. He's the second most valuable Turkish national team player after Arda Güler, right? You have the sense there is more there. And the question, I guess, is, and I mean, this is the big thing that's looming this summer, is he's going to represent Turkey at the World Cup. They're going to have Australia, Paraguay, and the United States in the group. Because of the way the World Cup is structured, we suspect that, they'd probably be good enough to be one of those 3rd place teams, at least, probably be better to sneak through to the next round. So we'll see I mean, if they have a run at the World Cup, you would suspect that would open up a lot of avenues for Kenan Yildiz to explore a path where if he says, well, this is as much as I can develop at Juventus, my market value is not necessarily going to be much more, where teams are going to say, well, this is a guy we maybe want in our team.
I think the rumors, they have already been there in the winter, because of course you can think there's this like really, really talented player, and at Juventus he might not even play in Champions League next year, and they went out of the Champions League like in a real dismal way against Galatasaray, and of course there were suggestions she could leave for one of the big Spanish clubs or for the Premier League. But then they still managed to get his contract extended to 2030, and gave him the big rise, gave him the confidence as a vice captain. And I think he, from the, of course, a player in the media, what he will say and what he will do in the end, it can sometimes be different. But there is a feeling that he knows what he's got there, like like he's the big star of the team right now, and if he went to Arsenal or Liverpool, he would be one among many again. And I think, of course, when they are playing a brilliant World Cup, he scores 5, and they go to the semi-final, and then the big offer for more than 100 million euros comes. Juventus won't say no, and he won't say no. I think there's no doubt about that. But if everything goes like in the normal way, then there might still be interest, but maybe not like this big offer that Juventus cannot decline.
I know Juve haven't been great in the last couple of years, but still Juventus. You know what I mean? There's not that many teams that you could potentially say, okay, well, as you said, it has to be a big offer, but where do you go from Juventus? It's really either one of the very top Premier League teams, and I'm talking very top Premier League teams. There's really one or two in mind, and I don't know if they really have the need to sign him, or it's either Barcelona or Real Madrid, isn't it? I mean, that is really what we're talking about here at this stage. And do they have the need? Because it's not like you're not gonna make good money at Juventus, quite the opposite. So, it is really fascinating to see where he develops. I'm a big fan. I every time I get to write the market value updates for Serie A, I always like to ask about Kenan Yildiz. I think he's a really interesting player. He's one that, despite everything, and especially because he's Turkish, still kind of flies a little bit under the radar. And until you watch him, and you're like, wow, there's something really special here. So that's kind of where I am at. If you have, and this is completely speculative, we don't have those market values in our system. We haven't even discussed them yet. But what do you think his ceiling is in terms of market value? And again, this is an opinion.
Yeah, I think he definitely can reach the big 100. He's 20 now, so we are talking still a talent in development, and we'll see how much he can reach at Juventus. I think there is also the possibility there to get a market value of 100 million or more. Probably or not as high as the big stars at Real Madrid and Man City and such, but on the next level, probably this is something that he could achieve at Juventus if he gets them to win the Scudetto, and then even gets higher numbers, which is something they will be aiming for next year, with Spalletti having a full preseason with the team, and they will put a bit more focus on attack next year probably. And if he gets 40 goals and assists, and they win something, then there's definitely the possibility to get over the 100. I can't confirm it, nor can I rule out that he will be at 100 million after the World Cup, but it's definitely possible, I think.
Keep watching him, and as always, check out our Serie A site. Check out, of course, all the great content that we do around Serie A as well. And you can find all the market value and the stats and Kenan Yildiz stats on our site. Marius, this was great. Thanks, as always, for joining me. And we'll get to talk about Parma soon. Don't worry.
All right. Thank you for having me again.